Hello, good evening, everyone. Good evening, this wonderful and beautiful March afternoon evening. This is Chelselia Cookie Payne, founder of Payne and Glory Incorporated and of Epitome Coaching. Listen, I wanted to take a moment to step out here on my deck and enjoy this beautiful, there's a squirrel right above me, this beautiful spring night, just to ask a quick question, just to kind of pop in and ask this question. Who's addressing the elephant in the room? Who's talking about the elephant in the room? Who's gonna open up their mouth and say something about the elephant in the room? And what's that elephant? I'm sure there's many that can be addressed. But for the sake of this Periscope and for many more to come in the month of April and probably beyond, the elephant we're going to be kind of addressing is the one that is not talked about in our families as much as it should be, not talked about in our churches as it could be, talked about as much in our churches as it could be, and that's mental health. At the end of this, towards the end of this year, we're going to be hosting again our Payne in the Pews conference, and it's going to be addressing mental health and ministry. Last year we had a phenomenal event. It was the first Payne in the Pews mental health and ministry that we had hosted. We'd had other topics that fell up under Payne in the Pews, but this year and last year the conversation continues regarding Payne in the Pews, mental health in ministry. So often people are dealing silently with issues. We go about our daily walk and suffering in silence because it's either the topic that we're not supposed to talk about because in our homes and our families growing up or whatever the case may be, you weren't supposed to talk about being depressed or having a disorder of the emotional or mental kind. But we can talk about the physical maladies. We can talk about the issues with our blood pressure or with our blood sugar being too high or too low, or with different maladies that are going on with our physical body. But what about when it comes to our emotional and mental health? We don't talk about that. And so in the month of April, starting in the month of April, I should say, we are going to have live segments where we're going to be discussing Payne in the Pews. We're going to talk about the different reasons why people go through different emotional and mental battles. We're going to talk about how depression and different emotional and mental battles were fought in the Bible. Noteworthy people in the Bible dealt with mental issues and how they overcame them. We're going to talk about how there are now some, not as many, but there are some churches that have already started a mental health ministry. Trust and believe that, in church, it is important to have a spiritual foundation, and it is important to have that spiritual base, and it's important to understand the necessity of having spiritual strength and having someone to pray with you. But just as it is important to go see a medical doctor for medical maladies, and I'm sure that there are ministers and pastors and preachers and teachers who would agree that when you go to the altar and get prayed for, that is not the final step. If you have diabetes, or if you have a heart condition, or if you have any kind of physical malady where you need another step, and coupled with your faith, you also need medical attention to have the physicians that are designed to help you in whatever it is that you're struggling with physically to get better. Once you take that prayer and faith and you couple that with the natural remedies that are necessary to make sure that you live a long and fruitful and healthy life, the same is important with your mental health. And just as a pastor or preacher or teacher or evangelist cannot treat you medically at the altar, it is important to know that In mental health, you need someone who is capable in the area of emotional and mental psychiatry, psychology, coaching, and mentoring, whatever the case may be, to help you. There is not a need to suffer in silence, but there is a need to address the elephant in the room and to get help. I was looking at statistics today because but along with being the founder of Pain and Glory and also of Epitome Coaching, I also work for the Centers for Disease Control. And I was looking at some statistics that were staggering. I was looking at the number of suicides and the number of cases of people who reported having thoughts of suicide, not carrying out the act, but thoughts of suicide. Now, mind you, please keep in mind that depression is not the only issue, not the only mental and emotional disorder that we'll be talking about, nor is it the only mental and emotional malady that is out there, but it's one of the ones that's most prevalent and people can identify with. And so I was looking at some statistics today, and it's staggering. And what's interesting to note is that of all those thousands of people who have taken their lives, and the thousands of people who have considered it, mind you, these are the people who were a part of a study and a part of the statistics. What about the ones that aren't? So it's probably double that number. Of all those numbers, of all those hundreds, thousands of people, you think most of them, some of them, any of them, I'm sure were Christians? I'm sure they loved the Lord. I'm sure that they had some level of relationship with God. But I'm sure, as I'm sure of those items, I'm also sure that there was help that was needed, that they probably, the ones that took their lives, didn't seek out or didn't know to seek out. And the ones who contemplated it, it was nothing unusual. A lot of times, the contemplation, what I found was so interesting, the contemplation of suicide for many people, a lot of it had to do with internal, didn't have to do with external issues or anything that they were going to. A lot of it had to do with what was going on with their physical health that was causing them to have an imbalance. And because of that, there are people who had thoughts that came out of nowhere of wanting to take their lives. Interesting. And we'll get into that in the month of April, starting the month of April. We're going to talk more about that. But it is, when I began to look at the statistics and when I went online and I did some research, not just recently, but last year, and thank you so much for the hearts, bless your heart. When I did research last year for the first Pain in the Pews Mental Health and Ministry last year, when I saw the staggering number of pastors and church leaders who were either suffering from depression, or the more staggering number was the number that had taken their lives, number of men of God. These were all men that I saw that had taken their own lives. And the reasons cited for some of them, the ones that actually left notes, it was staggering. And we'll discuss that. It was staggering. It was amazing to me because one pastor even talked about it, about why, and we'll talk about it, I won't get into that now, but why he felt that his friend took his life. It's so sad that the helpers, the people who give help and live the life of servitude, don't have an outlet. You gotta have an outlet. You gotta have, yes, Jesus is your outlet. Jesus is, you should pray and you should seek God. But you should have physical human contact with that you can share with, who can give you some type of balance. Because just as you are in your secret prayer closet and praying, when you have that alone and quiet time, that is also the time that the enemy speaks most as well. When you're not in that prayer time, but when you have that quiet time, when you're battling what you're battling, Because you got to think there's weight that you're carrying in ministry, whether you are in the pulpit or in the pews. There's weight, and if you don't allow that weight to be released, oh my. I remember seeing on ESPN Classics where they showed and many of you may have seen this or even heard of it. There was this boxing match took place a number of years ago. I don't even know what year it was, but this was on ESPN Classics, so it was some time ago. But it resonated with me. So I'm looking at this. This match, this guy's getting ready. I don't even know the name of the boxer, but he's a big guy. He's going in the ring, and exactly, not just counsel, it needs to be godly counsel. This guy was going into the ring, and the fight was getting ready to start, and the bell rings, and the man begins to weep uncontrollably. He is breaking down literally in the boxing ring. And if I find that video, I'm actually going to post it on my website or either on Facebook, so you'll see what I'm talking about. He begins to break down, and he's crying so much so that they have to stop the fight, which never started because he got to the ring and broke down. We don't want to be in that position where we have gone to church all our lives and built up our spiritual muscles, and we've heard and we've been trained just like this boxer trained, I'm sure, in his gym, and then get to the actual fight and have nothing left. Get to the actual ring and already defeated in our mind before the first punch is landed. We don't want to be that. So I encourage you to look out for the broadcast that will be starting in April. We're going to the conversation continues. # the conversation continues. Pain in the Pews 2016, mental health and ministry. We're going to discuss the elephant in the room. We're going to talk about the uncomfortable thing, the thing that exactly, get help before it's too late. We want to discuss the thing that is not discussed. We want to talk about the thing that's not discussed. And why? Because it's necessary. Years ago, 20, 30 years ago, women didn't discuss breast cancer and breast exams because that was too taboo to talk about touching your breast. Really? Come on. But we've come farther than that. But it's the truth. It's the truth. We didn't talk about that because you're not supposed to say that. You're not supposed to talk about that. But women were dying from breast cancer. It's the truth. We've got to talk about it, we've got to address it, and we've got to make some action happen behind it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the elephant in the room. We're going to talk about pain in the pews. The actual conference will be taking place the end of this year in September. So I encourage you to be on the lookout for that, and so we can come together and just make some things happen. Make some things happen for the good. So listen, I'm gonna close out. I'm gonna leave you guys to think about that. As if I come across that video, I'm going to let you guys see the video of what I'm talking about the boxer who got to the ring and had nothing left in him. We don't want to be that person. To get to the ring of our life, the most important fight, and have nothing left. Celia Cookie Payne, founder of Pain and Glory Incorporated and the Epitome Coaching. Listen, don't forget, join us tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. You don't want to miss this. It is the end of our Her Story segment where we're celebrating Women's History Month, the whole month of March, and tomorrow night is the last installation, and that is going to be tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. And where our guest will be Bernetta Knighton of the Knighton Project. You don't want to miss this. It's 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Follow us on Facebook and on social media. You'll see the dial-in number. Go to our website, painandglory.com. Click on upcoming events. You'll see the number right there and the access code. Join us tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Do not miss the conference call. It's absolutely free. You don't want to miss this. Bernetta Knighton will be our special guest of the Knighton Project. You want to be on this call if you have dreams or if you've stopped dreaming. If you have dreams that are unfulfilled, dreams that you want to see come to pass, or if you have stopped dreaming, you want to be on this call, because dreams absolutely, positively come true. Yes, she is an awesome person with an awesome, awesome vision. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss it. And don't forget, moms, aunties, big sisters, we have in May the 7th, Mother's Day weekend, we have our annual Restoring the Bond Mother-Daughter Love Retreat. You don't want to miss it. We're actually almost completely full. I had to expand the registration, but we did expand the registration and made room for a few more. It is absolutely free, but you do have to register. So go on to painandglory.com and go on to upcoming events. Lock in your space so that we will see you in the place. So listen, again, this is Chelselia Cookie Payne, founder of Pain and Glory Incorporated. We love you. God bless you. And don't forget, we want to address the elephant in the room. God bless.